Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. My name is Buck Woody. I work here at Microsoft Research and AI, and I'm part of a team of folks that goes around the world teaching artificial intelligence, programming and using and so on. We've decided to create this webinar series, and as part of that, we've got sort of an overview we'll do today. So we'll be moving fairly quickly through the material. I'll also drop you off at a couple of links at the very end where you can go learn more and see code samples and so on. We'll also have a link for you at the very end where you can register to do the rest of these webinars. We've got cognitive search coming, creating intelligent applications with Azure Search and Lewis and Bot and so on. And we'll be explaining kind of what those are today. So again, just so you're aware of what we're covering here today, this is sort of an audit of all of the Microsoft AI platform. We'll cover some things in more depth, and we'll show you some examples and some code and so on. But again, you're going to get the deeper dives in the ones that follow. So let's start off with defining some terms, shall we? The first thing is artificial intelligence is very hot right now, and the terms are a bit overloaded. People use artificial intelligence to mean just about anything. For this demonstration, maybe what we'll do is we'll just stick with the easiest one, which is computing which imitates human perception and the way we think. So the ability for a computer to see and hear, for it to be able to read text and comprehend what's inside. It's not new. Greek formal logic started out with some of the basics of what we use for AI, and then in the 60s and 70s we created things called expert systems, and there was quite a bit of hype around that. And then in the 80s and 90s, data mining with its predictive algorithms came to pass, and also interfaces. We were able to use cameras and microphones and so on inside a computer. So that's the beginning of it, but why is it so hot again now? Well, there's really sort of three big improvements that have happened that allow some AI at scale. We've got the advent of larger data sets, a lot more data in the world, electronic data, and the ability to process those. We've got better algorithms, and then we've also got a cloud computing platform which allows scale, and that allows a rapid progression of what we're doing. And people always ask me, well, make it real for me, what would I do with all this stuff? And I've got a link here, and again, all the links and things will be provided, but out on the main site for Microsoft AI, which I'll give you in a bit, you can see lots of different examples of what people have done with it, and these are just a start of what you can do. For instance, Uber is going to use the Face API that I'll show you in just a moment to make sure the driver matches the account that's on file. That way that you know that it's fairly safe. So we'll show you a demonstration of that here in a bit. The Microsoft AI landscape includes basically everything from stem to stern. You can stay inside the landscape entirely, or you can use open source and mix other tools as well. Start out with sort of embedded AI, and I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. And these are just in your applications today. For instance, when I created this deck, this PowerPoint deck, and I pasted my picture in, PowerPoint actually spun a little circle and said, using AI to tag your picture so that people who need the text descriptions will have that automatically. And that's just built in. I didn't have to do anything to make that happen. But there are features that I'll show you in a moment that you need to be familiar with to help your users become more familiar. The second part is using AI. So we have the cognitive services, which we'll talk about today, and then the bot framework. And what you can do here is, if you're a developer or someone who can work even with something like Curl, if you're familiar with that product, you can actually call these AI interfaces. They're just APIs. You send them what you'd like them to do, and they send a result back. So if you're a developer and you're thinking, do I need to become a data scientist or learn about machine learning algorithms, I think that's a great thing to do. But you don't have to do that to get started right now. And in fact, I think the key to all of this is to use this progression you're seeing here. If there's a feature already in Office or whatever, use that. If there's a cognitive services that does what you want, use that. Sometimes, though, you need to build your own, and so we have this idea of creating artificial intelligence. And we've got both platforms and toolkits and tools you can use to create your own AI solutions and services that you would then expose back out to your users or to your other applications. And I'll show you an example of that today as well. And of course, it's always a good idea to be able to find all this stuff. And so we have a full portal of solutions in a gallery you can use, and you can pull down reference architectures. You can use those for learning, or you can click a button and implement them, and some of them even have the ability for you to give them a try right there online. So that's the largest section here we're going to do, is just going through these progressions. So let's just take a quick peek at these as we go. The Microsoft AI platform can be flipped on its side if you think about it, what we just talked about. The embedded is sort of within the agents we have and the applications Microsoft has. And then we'll spend some time on services and then infrastructure and tools, and then of course the galleries available to us. Let's start with some embedded AI, the embedded artificial intelligence. And of course, we can't do that without talking about Cortana. Cortana is the personal assistant built in to the Windows 10 operating system, but also available for other platforms, mobile platforms from iOS to Android and so on. And this is more than just a search engine. What Cortana can do, if you allow it, you have to let it do this. It's not just going to do it by default. But if you allow it access to things like your calendar, and it knows I've got a flight from Seattle to LAX, for instance, and it tells me the current status of that. But it also knows that's in California, so it's already figured out the weather, and it's even it knows I tend to frequent some nice places to eat, so it's got the local cuisine there for me. I've also allowed it access to my contacts, and because of that, it knows I'm meeting with Erwin. And Erwin works at Fabricam Marketing, and I can learn more about Erwin and maybe even link in with him. I see that I've got a meeting scheduled with him, and it even asked me, would you like to set an alarm? And then there's a history of interactions I've had with Erwin. So again, this is just sort of baked in. There's not a lot I have to do to make this all true, but it just works. So then there's also AI in other applications. I mentioned PowerPoint earlier, but there's other things we have that have AI in them. One of those is Microsoft Pics, which is a little app you can take a picture of things, and it can scrape those things to get text or information out of the image. For instance, you can take a picture of a business card, and it will scrape the text out of that, realize it's a business card, realize that you might want a contact for it, and create a contact for you. That's really helpful. Another one that I love to show off, and I actually use this feature quite often in data science projects, is something like Excel's flash fill. I don't know if you've seen this. Perhaps you have. Here's a list of computer scientists from Cambridge in the UK, and these are folks that work there. And I happen to know that Cambridge, UK, all of it apparently, uses the last name and then and then cambridge.uk for an email address. So I can simply type an example of that and use the flash fill feature. And this is actually an AI algorithm. This came from Microsoft Research, and it will simply fill that out for me. And that's not a formula. If you click in here, you'll see that it's literally just the thing. And I can even prove that it works really well. Let's say we want to get their first initial and their last initial and put those. That's what I'm looking for now. And so I can simply use the flash fill, and it can figure that out. I can also tell it I just want the first name, or maybe I want the first name and the last letter or something. I can type any example, and when I do, it will automatically enter the data. And again, it's just data. And this is just baked in. You don't have to do anything here. It's just part of the product. What does the IT person need to know about doing something like this? Well, the IT person needs to know these things exist, and they need to help their users become more productive with just this baked-in API that has the AI in it. This is part of Skype and Teams. There's translation and so on that are happening within that. So that sort of closes out the embedded AI section of the talk. And again, this is not something you have to do. It's just something that's already there. But from time to time, you'd like to write an application that can actually go out and do some AI and come back to your application. And we call this just sort of using AI. And we have three big areas here. The first is a series of cognitive services, and we'll take a look at those in just a moment. And then some of those cognitive services can be customized. Perhaps you might want to change the way that it interprets an image and so on. Or you're able to change slightly the way that it interprets text, and we'll talk about those in just a moment. We also have a bot framework, and we'll explain what that is, and I'll show you a very simple example. We have code for all of these things, and I've got training, as I mentioned, in the links that sort of follow that we can go through. Let's take a look at what each of these are. So we start off with basically the same thing we talked about earlier in our definition of what AI is. It's the ability of a computer to act in a way that mimics human behavior. So the first thing, of course, is vision, and the computer needs to be able to see. So there's the camera, of course, that takes in the image, or perhaps you upload a photo, but then there are the algorithms that examine that and allow you to work with vision, and I'll show you an example of that. There's also speech. So you can hear your users as they talk, and you can speak back to them. It can filter out noise, and it can even understand what they want, and I'll show you some examples of that as well. You can also process written text or text that you send electronically and recognize what a user is looking for, and I'll show you an example of this in bot. We have knowledge APIs, search APIs, and you can get an early look at some of our cognitive services and those technologies, and you can let us know what you'd like to see and what's working. Let's dig into that a little more. It's not just that there's vision. The vision service has within it computer vision, emotions, face recognition. You can recognize celebrities and landmarks and so on. And there's even working with video and a video indexer. So when I say that you always start at the lowest level you possibly can, make sure that the Office products you're already using, if it's solving the need, use that. If one of these solves the needs, use this. It's very simple to program against these. I'll show you an example of that in just a moment. And you're able simply to call a REST API, and that REST API can be almost any language you can imagine. I know we've got some questions sort of building up in the queue there, and that's great. I'm going to hit those at the very end so we can get through, but I will answer those to make sure that I'll answer as much as I can. How's that? All right. So let's take a look at a particular one. I'm going to jump over here, and you can actually do these today. By the way, I didn't mention, but we just announced that Windows machine learning is now baked into Windows 10 devices. So you can use CPUs or even GPUs if you have them, and using the ONNX, which is an open standard format to work with machine learning, you can do those things. Let's close these guys out so we keep this nice and clean. So here's the computer vision API, and I'll send you a link to this page, and you can try it right now. And you can see that what it's done here is it's taken a photo, and it returns tags, and this will be in a JSON document, and you'll get various tags, and it'll even attempt to caption it. And it attempted to caption this, a group of people posing for a photo, and it's pretty sure that's what that really is. That's what that caption is. And then you get some other tags. It's outdoors, it's got a confidence level of being outdoors, and so on. But the other interesting thing is that it can read faces, and you can see here that it can tell gender, it can guess ages, and so on. So you can see kind of what it thinks things are. One of the immediate applications for this, you can tell whether it's a line drawing and so on, but whether it's adult content or not. One of the requests we got early on was we allow people to upload photos of, let's say, their car for insurance purposes or whatever, and we need to make sure we follow GDPR rules or US rules or other rules that say you can't have illicit content on your site. We need a way to scrub the picture that's being sent to us and make sure it's not bad, it's not an adult picture. And so you could simply call this API and it will automatically give you an adult content score, and you can even check how racy it thinks it is, and if you're okay with certain amounts of racy, you can allow it in or not. And then it also grabbed the faces and will even give you the locations of those faces. You get the general idea here, and you can even do noisy photos. Let's do one of these. And you can see that it's still figured out that it's a train and so on. And in fact, let's do something even a little noisier. I've got a picture here on my computer. This one's very noisy, so that's loading up into the web right now, and it's going to run it through the same API that you can call with code, And this is a very noisy photo here. You can see that it thinks it's outdoors. I think that's probably accurate. There's a man in front. There's somebody standing. There are glasses involved. It picked up my glasses. That's pretty good. It thinks everything's on fire. But it says that the text caption this time is a man standing in front of a fire. It's not certain about that. You could use this then to scrub and put your own caption in. Luckily, this is not an adult content or any racy content, so you can play with that on the web. This is just the standard call. You send the picture using the API call, which can even be done in curl, Python, Java, .NET, whatever can make a REST call, and it will return this body of JSON, but it can do more. Let's take a look here. We've actually got some text in some images. Let's go get something that's really hard to read, like this guy. We'll grab that, and you can send more, and it actually sends to you the text out of a picture. Here's the text, and you can scrub that from the JSON. It literally goes and gets all that for you. And then there's other things it can do. It can read handwritten text. I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan. Let's go grab something from Sherlock Holmes, and you can see how quickly it was able to read text. And again, you're able to put yours up. Even text at an angle. Yep, it looks like it can figure out angles and so on. Once again, you can see the call it made out to do that. That is simply part and parcel of the call you make in API. You don't have to write anything. There's no algorithms or anything else. It can also recognize landmarks and celebrities. You can analyze video. Now I'm going to start the video, and it may not show on your screen, but you can come back in and do this later. On the left side, there's a man running with his child on the beach. And in real time, when I click the play button here, and again, you may not actually see the change, but it's automatically recaptioning retagging every frame within the movie. So I'll let you go try that later. So this is one of the kinds of things you can do with video that's just built in, and there's much more, and you can see lots of others. In fact, you can do the same thing with speech and language and knowledge. You can go online and you can play around with those. So a lot of these services, by the way, can be customized. So in the vision we saw, it was tagging things automatically. But assume for a moment you'd like to tag whether, I don't know, a bicycle is a mountain bicycle or a racing bicycle, or if it's under warranty or not, or if the dent in the car is covered under the policy, or if it's a write-off. You can do that with the custom vision service. Once again, an API, but you're allowed to train the images. So you get all of the things you get in computer vision, but you also get back the tags you created so that you can say, no, I want to know if this is a mountain bike or a race bike, and so on. The same thing goes for the other services that you see here. You're able to change them slightly so that you can train them.